Give them a shot to do what?
Mike Powers from The Divide Live. I'm here with a special guest, Zack Clayton. What's up, Zack?
What's up, Mike? Thanks for having me, man.
No, of course, man, without a doubt. So we met doing good, and it was at a beer pong event for the Children's Specialized Hospital. So, fun. You ended up getting second place or first place?
So we got second place. First of all, I didn't even think we were going to get that far. I mean, how many teams were there? I think we did 10 teams or something.
No, it was like 62 teams. I know, because we had to create the bracket. So it was like
overall.
Yeah, maybe it was 32. March Madness. It was the same amount that March Madness has.
Right. Yeah.
So, but it was crazy.
It was insane, and we would have won, but apparently there's a real life like beer pong professionals that do this for a living, which I had no idea.
Uniforms, everything.
It was insane. And we got right there with them. We were like a couple cups down and we lost and we took second place, but if not for them, we would have won. Right?
Yeah.
I think maybe they shouldn't have been allowed at a charity event.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And then they showed up with the trophies like at a professional pong event. And I was like, are you kidding me? Which is great for exposure for everything we were doing, all of our sponsors that were on the trophy and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I was like, of course they won. They showed up in like jerseys, like they were just draining them. Literally, there was people being eliminated in the first round by them, and it was just like a buzzsaw all the way to you guys.
Yeah, totally. And then I heard when we were playing that they were just in Orlando the week prior and they just won like 10 grand at a professional tournament. I'm like, what is happening? I'm just trying to, trying to do some good here and eat some pizza. I didn't know this is going to be this competitive, but we took second place. So.
Yeah, dude, it was a crazy experience. It was for the Children's Specialized Hospital Foundation. Todd Frazier was the host of the whole event, but dude, it was so much fun. The one thing I noticed, and don't take this offense to this, everybody who was in the finals was like 6 feet plus.
That's a good point.
So Nikki Cass this year, when we bring it back, he's going to be the ref and make sure nobody's hands go too far past the table.
That was the other thing. And I don't know these guys. I don't know the professional beer pong champions that we played against, but there was definitely they were tall too. And I don't know, we were definitely leaning over probably what we were supposed to, but they had this lean thing that they were doing that I don't know if it was regulation or whatnot, but it shouldn't have been allowed.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. It's kind of like, hey, I'm going to jump into a ring with a professional wrestler. Like, exactly, it's like, you can't do that. Why are they allowed to do that? So that's another thing, man. You're only 29 years old, but I feel like you've had experience after experience after experience. And how did you get into pro wrestling, and what was that journey? Is that journey like for you?
Sure. So I started when I was 19. Actually, this April it's going to be 10 full years.
Congrats.
Yeah, man. And I started small town, upstate New York, Albany area. That's where I'm from. I started at a local school there, like a wrestling school. There are wrestling schools. A lot of people don't know that. They think you kind of just jump into a ring. That's not really how it works. There is a proper protocol and training like any other sport. So I started there. That school was a very small, no-name school that shut down shortly after I started, but I learned the basics there. And I went down to Brooklyn, which for me was a 3-hour drive every time I went down. But I did it to go train in Gleason's gym in Brooklyn.
I know exactly. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and with WWF Hall of Famer Johnny Rodz.
That's awesome.
So, which is now WWE, but at the time, that's when he wrestled, was WWF. And WWE they had eyes on his gym. They had scouts they had just picked up a couple guys from there. So I was like, oh, this is a good place to be. And Johnny was great. A lot of names came out of there. Taz, Tommy Dreamer, Bully Ray, a lot of people came out of there. He's known for a very old school, tough training, which I like.
Yeah.
Personally. He was a very no BS kind of guy. But by the time I got to Johnny, he was older, so he didn't get in the ring much. But when he did, it was usually for a bad reason for somebody else, never for me. But he was a great guy. And I started doing the independents. They're called the independent, almost like a rock band does local bars when they first start. I started with him, did the circuit in New York, Jersey, just kind of learned that circuit. And then I actually moved to Florida for 2 years, Tampa area,
Wow.
Sarasota.
Okay.
There was another Fed down there I was training with. Did a couple shows, but not much. And then when I moved back up to Jersey, it kind of took back off, but that was during COVID.
Mm,
So then COVID obviously shut down all sports and live entertainment.
right.
So there was like nothing going on. And then that's when AEW actually started to ramp up.
Hmm.
And I flew down there. They were doing their stent in Jacksonville, where Daly's place. So the owner of AEW owns the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Right.
So he had the whole pretty much
Arena
whole arena.
and complex,
Yep.
right? Wow.
So he would fly us in, and we would just kind of do 2 or 3 day stints there and just film what we had to film, and then roll it out and move on and come back the next week or whatever it was. So that's how I started to get those reps there.
So awesome.
And now I'm with TNA now,
Hmm.
working with the FBI. It's a great group of guys. Little Guido Nunzio has been around wrestling for as long as I've been alive.
Dude, it's insane, right?
Yeah, ECW days back
Yeah.
30 years ago. Are you familiar at all?
Yes, no, it was a faction, just like NWO. Like it was definitely up there. Like as far as like it's a recognizable logo, and
100%.
for you to be a part of that, like that's an honor in itself. Talk about how did that happen?
It is, and he's a great guy. He's like the everyone who knows him in wrestling, it's like he's everyone's uncle in a way, but he's also like the crazy uncle, Like he's an awesome guy. That started Tommy Dreamer reached out to me.
Wow.
He's like, "Hey man, I want you to come in and here's the idea. I want to build the FBI back up. I want to do a new kind of revamp of the FBI."
Mhm.
And I said, "I love it." And he kind of let me and the other guys take the reins with what we thought
Yeah.
it should be or creative and things like that. And it's been fun so far. There's more to come. And I'm grateful for Tommy to reach out and have kind of the trust in us to kind of just say, here's what I want,
Yeah.
but you guys can kind of make it your own thing. So, which is always an awesome thing to be in,
So
position to be in.
like I feel like finally professional wrestling's back to the like that 90s where when I grew up it was ECW, WCW, WWF,
Mhm.
right? So now with all these other companies, like one, how great is that for you as a professional wrestler? But two, the fans are winning, right? And then also like there's been times where you've seen TNA people on AEW,
Yeah.
TNA people on Royal Rumble making
Yeah.
appearances. Like how has that been? What's that chemistry like?
So it's a great thing.
Mhm.
So obviously the fans are winning
Yes.
because, like when you said, the '90s, a lot of people consider the heyday and the booming era of
Mhm.
professional wrestling. But if you're in the business, you kind of look at the '90s like it really was a war, and you really were out there for your company and defend your honor and your
Yeah.
livelihood. Because back then there were not certain things like we have now. Those guys back then, and if you talk to them, they'll tell you about it. They didn't have guaranteed contracts.
Right.
They didn't get paid if they didn't work. So if they blew out their knee and they can't wrestle, they don't work.
Mm.
And there was no, medical system was not what it is today.
Right.
Rehabbing is not what it is today.
No.
They didn't have doctors, to come back and do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like they taped it up and they
No.
went out tomorrow because they had
Yeah.
to get paid. And then that's when you had WCW come in and they were offering all this money to all these guys and it was competition all of a sudden,
Mhm.
which is what we're seeing now. There's a lot of companies, not a lot, but there are new companies now
Yeah.
and people have options. Whereas before about 5 years ago, they didn't really have too many options.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. Fans win.
Right.
Wrestlers have more chances to make money, which is always a good thing.
Mhm.
And it actually creates this boom in the business again because you are competing with other people again.
Right.
Instead of, I'm not saying a monopoly is a bad thing because WWE they kicked everyone out of competition. They
Right.
won,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So when you win, you're on top.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't get the always the competitive edge that you had before because there's no longer competition.
Right. Right.
You know,
And I saw some wrestlers like struggle because of that,
Mhm.
like and WWE started to realize it and they started making different they brought back ECW for a little bit,
Right.
NXT became a thing, you know, all these different orifices, but I was like kind of like it's still like, so when AEW shows up, it just kind of really changed everything. TNA went through their struggles in the beginning, but I always felt that
Yeah.
was uh, impactful, right? No pun intended, because
Yeah.
it
Right. Right.
switched to impact. But it's so cool to see. But also, like, I'm kind of glad that they understand now. Like, there's almost like understanding that all this needs to exist, or we could all coexist, right? Still competitiveness,
Mhm.
still, like, totally upset or happy when somebody crosses over, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's still cool. You've seen Cody Rhodes come leave AEW to come into WWE. You saw Edge, who I thought was a WWE lifer, now in AEW. It's like everybody like it's like what?
Yeah, man. So first of all, it's exciting,
Yeah,
right? It brings back the excitement and it brings back uncertainty,
right.
for good and bad.
Mhm,
Because like you said, people you thought are this company forever,
mhm,
maybe not anymore.
right.
So now it's like, okay, now anybody could really go anywhere and do
It's
anything.
crazy.
And even people that you think you mentioned Cody. Cody's
Right.
a good friend of mine. Um, Cody is a great guy. He's super smart
Uh-huh.
and everything he does means a lot.
It's great.
So for him to do what he did, and obviously you see him, he's
Mhm.
now the WWE champion, just had the biggest WrestleMania of all time,
Yeah.
where he literally, you look at what happened with him, The Rock. The
Mhm.
Rock comes back,
Yeah.
and I don't know how closely you follow, but it sounds
Okay.
like you follow close. I mean,
Yeah.
The Rock came back
Mhm.
uh, to take the main event spot at WrestleMania,
Yeah.
and the fans said, "You know what? That's cool, but we want Cody. We've been watching Cody
Yeah.
for 2 years. He needs to finish the story." And to see in real life Cody Rhodes take on the biggest star in the world
Mhm.
for the spotlight, and
Mhm.
Cody won,
Right.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And that can only happen in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen in Hollywood. Hollywood's gonna say, "No, this guy's in, and that's it."
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Like the fans can't dictate anything. Like,
Right.
as much as you love your sport, you can't dictate that either. So when that happens, it's in front of a Super Bowl crowd in Vegas,
Yep.
and they realize like they had to change this, and it's so cool. One, The Rock to recognize that, I guess, because he could have just taken his ball and left. It's
Yep.
kind of weird that one transaction with the
Oh,
where
dude, so
Gabe.
you're really up on it.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I was at WrestleMania. I
Right.
took Grace in the WrestleMania,
Mhm,
and such an awesome time.
mhm.
Really was awesome, and it was in Philly,
Yeah.
right? And it was just a crazy time. The Philly crowd was awesome, and it
Yeah.
was like this thing you were watching was like truly like a Disney movie play out
Right.
in real life
Yeah.
because you have the biggest star in the world
Mhm.
for the most part.
Yeah,
Everyone can pretty much
it's fair.
recognize that.
Right.
And to a lot of people, he's like, "Oh, he's going back to wrestling?"
Mhm.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
yeah, he
Yeah.
is, and this is what he's doing, and that means that it means something
Right.
because that's what he wants to do. He could do anything he wants.
Yeah.
He wanted to come back to do this story,
Mhm.
right? And that's really cool,
That's,
you know?
amazing, especially for that company,
Yeah,
especially for, us as fans, because that doesn't happen. Like, the only thing I could, compare that to is, like, when Jordan came back wearing
exactly.
45,
Yeah.
like, things like that. So yeah, it's a life-changing
Or
moment.
it's like, we just saw Tom Brady step back, right? It's
Right.
like if I don't know, we can make up a scenario because it's wrestling, we can make it up. And in sports, it's like imagine Belichick coming back to coach the Patriots with Gronk, and then
And
Brady's all of a sudden like, you know what? Yeah, I want to play this game only. Like that.
music
Could you
hits.
imagine
Yeah.
his music hits and he comes in?
Super
It's
Bowl.
like exactly
That's it.
like that would never obviously happen,
No.
but you can do that in wrestling,
Yeah.
and that's why it's so awesome and just fun. And like touching back to the original point of now there's a little bit of diversity, and yeah, it's just an amazing time in pro wrestling again.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Another thing that intrigues me about you as a human is your willingness to, one, put yourself out there, share your fitness journey, share your mental health journey, and really make a difference. You have a community on Instagram now that people could subscribe to or join, where you're sharing, health bits, whether it be food, working out, stuff like that. Why is that so important to you? Obviously, it's working for you, and your body is a part of your job, right?
yeah.
Like, it keeps you employed. Talk about that and how that's working.
Sure, man. Yeah. So touch on the last point real quick. You would think like my body, I work hard on it, and you have this image going back to wrestling of what a wrestler should look like, and in the 90s, everyone is 6 feet, whatever, and
Ye
just jacked to the gills. And
yeah.
it's like, okay, that's what a wrestler looks like. And you
Mhm.
turn on TV now, and there's a lot of it, but also it's
Right.
great to have the diversity of not everybody looks like that anymore.
100%.
And again, that's another good thing. But then also sometimes you're a little bit bitter because it's like, wait a
Yeah.
minute, I work to look like this and you get to wrestle in a t-shirt. I'm like,
And drink beer and like,
it's like, all right,
right,
man. I
right.
mean, we're both here. That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I should rewind it. When I was living in upstate New York and I was training to be a wrestler, I was also running a gym, a performance gym. I was training athletes. I was training everyday people
It's
just to be
amazing.
better.
Right.
I had clients that were 8 years old, all the way. I had an 85-year-old woman who
Wow.
would come in 3 times a week, by the way.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really was. And I loved it.
Mhm.
It was so much fun. And when I kind of took other turns in life, I had to stop doing that. But it's something that I still want to do. And I still have people reach out to me
Right.
because they see what I do. And it's like, hey, how are you motivated to do that? Or what is your plan? Or how do I start? Or all these questions. And I can't get to everybody anymore. I
Right.
can't say, just come to my gym and I'll help you out.
Right.
I don't have that anymore.
Right.
So now I believe, to me, if you are a person of influence that has a platform, you should probably use it to help people.
Yeah.
I believe that.
That's a great belief. I wish more people shared that.
Yeah, me too,
Yeah.
because a lot of people do it for vanity and all this
Dude.
stuff. And I think you should use it for a
Yeah.
purpose, and the purpose should be to help people.
Well, what gravitates me is your delivery in it and also like the trueness behind it, right? Because I've seen other people, they're like, I saw this one guy, he's like, I divide uh in 24 hours, I treat that like 3 different days and I work out 3 times. Every 6 hours is a
Yeah.
different day. And I'm like, all right, dude, like just be real. Like,
Yeah.
like I get it, like different formulas and stuff like that, but you are way overthinking life. And with you, it's like kind of like you just finish your session, you're just sharing your feelings and your belief and like hoping that it gets contagious and maybe you change a few people's lives. And I like that approach better than the some of these celebrities that do share their
Mhm.
opinions and you're kind of like that sounds like marketing.
Well, you can tell nowadays, especially,
Mhm.
what's genuine and what's not
Yeah.
genuine,
Right.
or who's taking other people's words and trying to make it their own, and who's
Right.
just saying what they actually believe and feel, and who's trying to play up to the camera and who's just being a real person. I mean, and then you have guys that are just crazy, like, you follow the fitness space?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit.
So like, an example of that would
It
be
doesn't
like
work for me.
no, we'll
We'll
get you
fix
there.
that. We'll fix
But
that.
an example would be like Goggins, David Goggins.
Yeah.
Guy's insane.
Mhm.
Awesome, but not for everybody.
No.
Most people, unless you're already that,
Yeah.
are not going to find his stuff like intriguing to follow because they just simply are so far. The gap is so wide
Mhm.
that they can't even think about even beginning to start getting there.
Right.
Right. Like if we show his videos to most people, they'd be like, it's just,
Dude.
what do you want me to do with that?
Right.
So you kind of start, you break it down and work backwards.
Mhm.
So it's like, join the free Facebook community or the free Instagram community.
Mhm.
Even if you don't right now work out and you don't right now aren't an athlete or you don't have a nutrition plan, or just like maybe one of these things that I say
Mhm.
will help you just for that day
Yeah.
or that week or that month.
Right.
And then maybe that gets you closer to being like, you know what, that actually wasn't so hard. What else do I have to do?
Right.
How else can I start?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really not that hard. The hard start is thinking about it.
Right.
It's like, how do I start that?
Mhm.
Well, I don't have a plan. Well, how do I? It's just that's the hardest thing you have to overcome. And the
Yeah.
quicker you can close that gap
Mhm.
between where you want to be and where you're at now, and just with anything, one step,
Yeah.
you're one
So
step closer.
so personally for me, like to backtrack to the whole COVID and how the whole world shut down, like everything became virtual. So I was like, oh, cool. I could sit behind a desk. Nobody knows that,
Yeah.
and like you're not seeing many people in real life, right? Events where uh, you had to pick and choose events. Like you weren't even some weddings we didn't go to, stuff
Mhm.
like that. So it got very easy to like fall off,
Mhm.
right? And I definitely personally, I'm addicted to running. When I
Oh,
run,
awesome.
yeah, not anymore, but when I run, I'm mentally in my best Like, it just clears my mind. I remember to do stuff. It allows me to formulate a plan and structure for my day,
Mhm.
like why I'm in that zone. Like, and I was running on an average day, like, 3 to 5 miles. So
Oh,
over
wow.
120 miles a day, a month.
A month,
A
yeah.
lot of my buddies, though, they were like, dude, you're running too much. Like, so like, it was also like, I couldn't understand that side of it too. Like, cause you could run yourself like almost out of not it could become counterproductive. So it is a balance of everything, eating right,
Mhm.
a little bit of weightlifting, a little bit of running. But like you said, I was like, hey, at least I'm doing this, right?
Yeah.
Because my favorite thing, the first time I ever joined a gym, I think it was like 2002. I was a junior, maybe senior in high school. And they were like, well, what do you want out of this? I was like, I want to be able to eat whatever I want and not gain any weight.
Mhm.
And they're like, that's such a bad philosophy. I was like, and now I'm like, and they told me I had to like eat chicken and uh, grilled stuff and all this other stuff. Well, let's crawl, walk, run, like what you just said,
Mhm.
because I probably would have signed up for the gym. I would have then been at, maybe that trainer could have then told me to work on my diet, and a couple weeks into it. But when you try to do it all at once, a lot of people, it gets overwhelming. For you to say take it a day at a time to do that just shows that you actually care about the person and not the results to show on a piece of paper or
Right,
whatever, or on a photo in the gym. Like, hey,
right.
look, Mike joined, 30 pounds overweight. Now he looks like this. Like, and we could have gotten there. But the minute I said, I want to work out so I could eat junk food, they were like, you're not our client. You're
Right,
not our
right,
client. And
right.
I was like, all right.
There's a lot to unpack there, but basically, first of all, like, the more it's funny because the more you work out, almost like eating a day of junk food isn't actually that bad for you anymore, right?
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
like it's funny, but again, if you have structure and a routine, and you say that I am able to speak in that way that it works because it's worked and I've done it before.
Right.
I'm not it's not like I've never done this before with people.
Right.
And it's like, oh, Zach has a new thing. No, it's not like that. I've done it before and it's worked. And I understand what works because I've had people that are athletes do it, and people that are non-athletic at all do
Mhm.
it. They just want to become better.
Right.
I had somebody, um, it's actually a great story. So I'm gonna tell it and maybe he's listening. He was my phys ed coach in middle school,
Okay.
right? He was like my PE teacher.
Right.
Okay. And so the gym was in the same town that I grew up in. And he came in and he's like, no way. He's like, Zach? I'm like, his name's Mike.
Yeah.
It was just such a great thing. And I signed him up to the gym, signed him up to my one-on-one training. He came in 3 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week, actually. He only wanted to work with me. And then we just bonded for like 6 months. But over that 6 month period, I think it was 30 pounds or 40 pounds he lost.
Wow.
And then I had him for a year and he lost, pretty sure it was close to 100 pounds. It was like 80 something pounds.
Wow.
And he's like, I want to start bench pressing again. I haven't bench pressed since college. Okay.
Right.
Like 30 years ago. I'm like, let's do it. So we started him on a progressive plan. So we're getting him up. He's benching 225 for reps
Yeah.
and sets.
Wow.
He puts it down one day. He comes up to me. He's getting a little emotional. I'm like, Mike, you just crushed it.
Mhm.
He's like, no, it's not that. I just haven't done that in 30 years.
Huh.
I'm like, dude, that's amazing. And that's why we're here. But he was getting emotional about it. Like, that's what it's about. It's
Yeah.
not about like putting him on Instagram for,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Like, yeah, like the one gym was like, "Hey, let's take a picture of you with your shirt off right now, and we'll keep looking at it." I was like, "Let's not. Let's not. Like, let's just understand we both know what I look
you're
like."
like, I know what I look
And
like.
yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be like, "Ah, you didn't do anything." Like, so it's like, yeah, I think that's why like I reached out and I was like, "Hey, let's talk about this and let's talk about, how we could change people's lives, whether it be, you know, uh children with autism, children with special needs, or, obviously the children's hospital." So that's the last thing I want to talk about, if you don't mind. Culture Kings. If I said it wrong.
Culture City.
Culture City. I always say culture kings. I don't know why,
That's a
because I
pretty
feel
cool
like
name.
you're like a king, like I
That's a pretty
king and
cool name.
queen of that. So how did that all start, Culture City and everything?
So 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago, I've been with my fiance almost 6 years. She was on the board of Culture City.
Mhm.
Culture City is a charity. We spread awareness, inclusion, and acceptance for those with invisible disabilities. So you hinted to it before of autism or
Mhm.
Down syndrome or Asperger's. We work with veterans with PTSD and people with other mental instabilities. I don't want to say problems or
No, it's
diagnosis
right,
because sometimes it's actually not even that.
right,
Sometimes it's just um, something not as serious,
right,
but they don't understand that yet.
right.
So we kind of help with that process. We have a sensory certification program where we go to these different venues, stadiums, arenas, restaurants. We
Mhm.
just certified Broadway last year.
That's amazing.
We just every Lego store in the country, like Lego,
Yeah,
certified by Culture City.
let's go.
So what that does is it allows us to bring our form of a certification. What it really is just teaches you to identify, hey, maybe this person is having an issue and helps you know what to do with it. Like,
Mhm,
how can we cope with this and help this person out during the time that they're in our facility?
mhm.
The other thing we do is we have sensory bags, we call them. Inside the bag are headphones, fidget spinners and gadgets,
It's awesome.
weighted blanket. Every bag, I think we vary it a little bit.
Right,
But those are for sporting events, like you go to a wrestling event
right.
where there's a lot of pyro and loud music and
Yeah,
banging and slamming. Sometimes that can be overstimulating, just like you go to an NFL game
yeah.
or an NBA game.
Mhm.
A lot of loud crowd music, banging, slamming, pyro. Not everybody can deal with that. Even if it's funny, because even if you aren't diagnosed with something, and we have people that come to us, it's like, actually, I don't like that. And I didn't really know that until now. And it's funny to see people like, so you don't have to have a diagnosis to take part in our programs.
Right.
You can just put on pair of headphones
Yeah,
and let us just help you out. So we take away the labeling aspect of it,
right.
like the
Yeah,
negative connotation of what people believe.
yeah,
Oh, you have autism, you can't do certain things. That's not true
right.
at all,
No,
actually.
absolutely not
Yeah.
even not even close.
Not even close.
Yeah, my nephew Braden, he knows more about the stock market. He's 8 years old, and he knows more about the stock market than I could ever wanna dream, and he also knows his mom makes, like, 6 figures, and I was like, "How
Yeah.
do you know that?" Like, I didn't know what 6 figures meant when I was 8, and he's an amazing kid, and it's just like yeah, like 2 things that I love what you just said. Like, one is there's so many different levels of it, right? Capabilities and stuff like that, and what you actually need.
Mhm,
And it's like sometimes when people hear a label, society has put a photo in their head,
mhm.
right? Disabled, you think of a person in a wheelchair, unfortunately, like stuff like that. So when I hear a message that's like, hey, sometimes people don't even know they need our services.
Mhm.
And they're like, I just thought I had to deal with that for the rest of my life.
You'd
So,
really be amazed. Like, really wouldn't believe it. We have so many people. So we've helped millions of people at Culture City. The other thing
right,
we do is we build out sensory rooms.
right,
We call them sensory rooms, which is pretty much just a enclosed environment, like a safe zone, a quiet zone.
right,
So where if we're at a stadium, we're at a venue,
right.
like
Jingle
Link.
ball.
Let's do
Yeah,
Jingle Ball. Let's take
yeah,
WrestleMania and Lincoln Financial.
right, right.
Beautiful sensory room there,
Yeah,
at Eagle Stadium.
absolutely.
You go in and the lights are dim. We have the walls outfitted with gadgets and spinners and Lego boards, and we have bean bags and things to help you decompress, weighted blankets. You can go in there and just chill,
Yeah,
calm down,
right.
take a breath, get out of the loud noise. If you're overstimulated, then maybe you can come back to the event. But if you don't want to, that's fine. You can hang out in our room as long as you want.
That's amazing.
So we have, I think we have over 600 of those now
That's,
built throughout the world. We're in 1,800 locations worldwide.
that's
We've
unreal.
handed out over 1,000,000 sensory bags.
Congrats, man.
Yeah,
That's,
so it's definitely a great thing that we love to be involved in,
yeah,
and we love getting people involved because almost everybody somewhere
mhm,
knows someone
of course.
directly or secondhand that is affected.
Yeah. And it's becoming like everybody wants to like talk about statistics and oh now more people have that. Well, we're identifying the issues too, right?
Yep.
Like we're identifying the human being and making it more comfortable for them. The fact that exactly what you just said, like you're able to join the room and if you want to come back to the party, you can. Like so you don't have to now leave the party because prior to that sensory room, what was the option?
You were going home.
Yeah, and
And
that
yeah,
sucks,
and it
man.
sucks.
That
So,
sucks.
like, back to you should be able to enjoy it.
Yeah,
Just because it's loud for a minute, it is loud.
right.
It's loud for me.
Yeah.
It's gotta be loud for you,
And
you know?
I'm
So,
gonna cut this up, send this to every speaker company out there in the world
listen, it's true.
because it's so true. But also, like they're the ones making it loud, so
Mhm.
like they should be helping and supporting Culture City as much as they can. So, dude, this has been awesome. I can't thank you enough. Thanks for coming into the iHeart Studios to hang out with me. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we get out of
No,
here?
thank you, man. It's been great. Let's
Mhm.
do it again
Yeah, heck
for
yeah.
sure. This has been great.
Where can they find you?
At Zack Clayton on all socials. I just got TikTok. I'm not a big
Let's
TikToker.
go. Let's go.
I'm
I
the
saw you at Six Flags doing a little dance. You got to add
Oh,
that to your
dude,
TikTok.
the last couple months I've been trying TikTok. It is just me. I have some help, but like not really. And I don't. They're not the best. And I'm never gonna be great at TikTok. But anywhere is at Zack Clayton. Don't make fun of my TikTok.
All right, we'll be right back. This is Fox Sports The Gambler, the Divide Live.